Thanks, Gregor. Afternoon, Paul. Obviously, tested out a couple of different looks. Why is it important to have options, especially after playing a team 9 times already?
For that reason, especially because they've seen your primary look, and you need to be able to make adjustments on that. And you also have to prepare for different players being in and out of your lineup and available for you, so that you can move different hands around on the power play and have different looks, so that when you hit the ice, you can't cover every situation, but if you make an adjustment on your power play, you don't want it to be the first time you talked about it on the bench. You want to have worked on it, talked about it. So we're just covering off some places we'll start and some places where we would like to go.
We'll go next to Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Hey, Paul, not sure how much of it you got to see, but the games on the weekend, obviously overtime or very close right to the end. I'm wondering if you think that is a product of the teams having played each other so often.
Yeah, there's probably a piece to that, right? Like you go back to, a few years ago, we were done with St. Louis in January, didn't see them for 3 months before you hit it. So everybody's got a pretty good handle on the other team. I think what struck me, and I watched all the games, is we all will talk about playoff intensity, but they were all, really physical, really high energy. And that one is, I think there's been a challenge for all these teams, especially in the North with one fewer team, like keeping that emotional level, right? Like trying to get to it. There's no fans in the building, but boy, they all have gotten to it real quick. I mean, that's fantastic hockey to watch. It's hard, it's physical, there's action, nonstop action at both ends of the rink. So for fans that have been dying for hockey games, I know they can't go see them up north, but they're fantastic to watch now.
We'll go back to Ted Wyman for a follow-up. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, just wondering, Paul, what your thoughts are on that difference between the fans being in those buildings in the U.S. and here, and what kind of impact it will or will not have on the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair up here because we don't have to, nobody's going to have anybody in the building, but it makes a difference. Just in viewing the game, just the noise, right? It feels different. So it's so much more like, and I think I really do believe that the only maybe possible silver lining in all this is that the people, the players now have just a great appreciation for how important fans are to the experience, for the players especially. I think it makes a big difference, and hopefully it will be fair by the time a Canadian team gets to the conference final. There'll be a lot of people in the building.
We'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Gregor. Hey, Paul. Look, we make a lot about Mark Scheifele's comments, particularly earlier in his career as he was rising up to where he is today, about wanting to be in the same conversation as other players, like the Connor McDavids and other people. And when we brought it up today, he did say that he'd been thinking about it for a few days about, I don't want to put words in his mouth. He didn't say measuring stick, but about McDavid nonetheless. And I'm just kind of curious at this point in his career, if there's a need or if you need to talk to him about not making it Mark Scheifele versus Connor McDavid, so he's not putting too much pressure on himself into this series.
Yeah, I don't think it's a versus thing that I'm concerned about. He's going to go head to head with him an awful lot. It won't be the entire matchup, but that's inevitable. I mean, that you want a player aspiring to that, to play against the best in the world, and to reach that. I don't have a concern is they play different games and not trying to play the other man's game. So where his strength can be for us is, working with his line mates and being part of a group. Connor McDavid certainly does that, but his uniqueness makes him kind of a one-off in the way he plays the game. So you want that guy, you want Mark Scheifele wanting that challenge and then rising to that challenge. And that's how all players are measured.
Go next to Sarah Oleski from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Paul, just kind of following up on that, how much does Mark, we always talk about maybe Blake setting the tone for your group over the years, but how much does Mark's involvement on that line play a role in the success that you might see from Connor or from Blake?
Yeah. Kyle Connor and Blake? Yeah. So the guy who plays the most minutes has the biggest impact on the game. So you start with your goaltender, and after that, it becomes Mark Scheifele. He has the biggest impact on the game potentially for our team because he plays center ice, and that's basically the defense in your end. And because he's a puck mover, how he utilizes his line mates. I think in the last 2 games, it's not really about the goals. They've had a fantastic balance of really high-end skill, but that not being the most important thing that they brought to the rink that night. When you think of the little tip that Blake Wheeler made to Kyle Connor for the breakaway, I mean, there's some really high-end skill going on with what that line does. But where they've been different maybe than earlier in the years, they've gotten it to speed now, right? They're back check. They're doing all the other parts of the game. So he has a huge impact in what we do. We saw it in the bubble last year. He played about 2.5 minutes for us. We played as hard as we could, but we were just a different complete. We didn't have the center ice coverage that we have now either. And when you lost Mark, we were clearly in significant trouble. We won game 2, but I just didn't think we had really a chance when you lost him without Stastny here, without Dubois here. We just didn't have enough coverage to be able to win that series.
We'll go back to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Paul, what will be the determining factors in how you decide who's on your third pairing going into game 1?
The first will be health, where we think we're at. And that's probably the big one. If everybody's healthy, we'll have one decision to make. If we have to hold a guy a game, we'll let the first game be played, and then we'll make a decision after that. So up to game 1, it will be health. And then after game 1, it'll be performance.
I'll go back to Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Paul, whenever we bring up the Adam Lowry's line as the shutdown line, I wouldn't say defensive is the word, but they've always kind of talked about their offensive ability too, and wanting to chip in that area. And of course, you want that from all your lines. Given this matchup, assuming that Adam and his line is going to see a healthy dose of Connor McDavid, particularly at home, is it okay to kind of stress the defense, and if the offense it comes, but have the priority be defensive, or do you want them to play a little bit more free-minded as far as how they play their game?
Well, I want them to play to their strengths, and their strengths will be offense will come off great defense, right? They don't have to force that issue. They've got a different style of hockey that they play. I mean, and that's true even with Matty Perreault when he goes there, and Matty's been effective with Lowry and Appleton because there is more offense right there. I mean, all of those guys are just better players than they were a couple of years ago, and Appleton, Lowry, and Kopp came into the league as defensive players, so that's their foundation. But I mean, Andrews had a brilliant year this year offensively. Lowry and Appleton have lots of confidence. So the offense, where maybe the change, Jeff, is that they wouldn't necessarily think about offense going to the rink and making plays that are there. It'd be just a shutdown, everything deep. Now that still has to be their foundation of their game, but there's a play to be made there. Now they have some confidence to make that play.
Go back to Ted Wyman from the Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Paul, I understand Connor Hellebuyck skated before this practice. Can you shed any light on why he didn't participate in the full practice?
Well, we like to get Connor, a half hour to 45 minutes with Wade Flaherty as often as kind of we can. The schedule doesn't allow it a whole lot, but he really likes that too. So we're doing a power play day to day, which means there's going to be a lot of shots that go to the net. He can get more out of spending time with flats. So we've done this in the past. Now that we got 3 goalies, he goes out, he gets his movement drills. He has a bunch of things that he likes to do to prep himself for a game. We have a bunch of days off. So you will see that if we have time on our schedule, and we do it actually right at the start of training camp, right? We pull a goaltender kind of each in the first few days, and they spend an hour of the flats. So it's kind of a routine that he likes to have. And some days you're just trying to get your team up and down the ice. That's great, except the goalies see 1,000 shots, and it's not really what they need. He likes to work on specific things. And today was a good out for him to do that.
And final question to Sarah Lusky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Paul, just wondering, are you expecting to have Pierre-Luc Dubois available for practice tomorrow?
I don't know the answer to that. Depends on how he comes in.